Save me and I'll be your servant. Lonely farmer revealed an incredible, life-changing secret. Joe looked out over his parched land as the sun dipped low on the horizon, the lush green rows of corn his father had tended becoming a distant memory. He felt like a ghost amidst his family's legacy, the weight of despair heavy on his shoulders. Alone in his quiet, fading town, whispers trailed behind him like shadows, some admiring his kindness, others hastily dismissing him as an outcast. Yet, even desperate times couldn't snuff out the flicker of dreams he nurtured in his heart. As spring finally coaxed life back into the soil, a season meant for hope became a time of selflessness for Joe. He lent his weary hands to neighbors in need, repairing fences and sharing the last of his dwindling food supply. Whenever someone would thank him, he felt a warmth bubble inside, but that was often followed by chilling glares from those who saw only his misfortune. They never knew that beneath his fracture lay an unshakable resolve to protect what little remained of his father's legacy. The day the storm hit, dark clouds rolled in with menace. The town sprinted for shelter, but not Joe. He charged into the chaos, heart racing, determined to save stranded livestock and families being consumed by the unforgiving torrent. The wind whipped through his clothes, and each drop of rain felt like a judgment from above. How could they trust a failure like him to shoulder responsibilities when they themselves turned their backs? As the storm calmed, after truly testing his mettle, Joe emerged with a spark that would change everything. With what he had, he began to build sustainable farming tools. Simple contraptions designed to pull them from the brink of despair. It wasn't just for him, it was for anyone willing to learn. The moment he shared his designs, it ignited a flame of hope in the hearts of many. Yet curiosity wasn't enough. Skepticism whispered that they could never follow a man they deemed beneath them, while others saw a glimmer of salvation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Town leaders, hardened by privilege, gathered in their meeting hall, voices rising against one another. Some championed Joe's cause, while others held tightly to their prejudices. In that moment of heated debate, Joe stood in the shadows, conflicted. Could he be a source of unity, or would their judgments bury him? Just then, a voice from the crowd, a neighbor who had never acknowledged Joe before, spoke up. An unexpected spark soared in the room, amplifying hope and igniting a conversation that could either tear the town apart or weave it back together. Joe felt a surge of determination. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He realized that his path forward wasn't just through innovation, but through the fragile threads of unity that were stronger than any storm. Would they muster the courage to embrace him and step away from their prejudices? Or would they allow fear to keep them from rescuing the future that lay ahead of them? The fire crackled in the town hall's hearth, casting flickering shadows across faces filled with doubt and uncertainty. The chatter quieted just enough for Joe to hear his rapid heart beating in his chest. Every person in the room was a mixture of hope and skepticism, some eyes lit with possibility, others darkened by age-old beliefs. As the murmurs faded, that one unexpected voice rose again, a familiar pitch emerging over the rest. "Joe's done more for this town than any of us have lately," it declared with an intensity that caught many off guard. It was Mary, a woman with a reputation for being tough, yet fiercely protective of her own. "He's not just selling us dreams, he's giving us a chance to change." Joe's heart soared and sank all at once. Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket but felt intimidating too. He wasn't just an outsider, he was being thrust into the spotlight. A chorus of hesitations followed. But what does he know? He's a farmer like the rest of us, right? Each question stung, echoing the very feelings Joe wrestled with. The weight of inadequacy settled heavy on his shoulders. Would they see his designs as a breakthrough, or simply the ramblings of a deluded man? "Listen," Mary pressed, her voice steadying the room. "You all remember the storm. Who was out there? Who pulled us together when we were ready to fall apart? Joe might not hold a fancy title, but he has carved out the kind of community spirit we need right now. As Mary spoke, Joe felt his uncertainty wavering. He stepped out from the shadows, into the light of the fire, and gathered courage. I know I lack experience, but I have hope. Hope can grow, just like our crops. If we unite, we can create something extraordinary together. Silence hung in the air. Joe's breath felt like a gust of wind, mingling anticipation and dread. Determined, he continued. I want to teach you what I've built. These tools will require teamwork, trust, and every hand we can muster. But if we really work together, we can create a future we can all believe in. Eyes narrowed, whispers rippled through the room. But then, one by one, they began to nod. A few exchanged glances laced with surprise and consideration. It was a start, the fragile first step towards something Joe had only dreamed of. Just then, someone in the back spoke up. What if it doesn't work? The doubt echoed like a thunderclap but also illuminated the path ahead for Joe. What if it does? He countered, pride swelling within him as the crowd silently contemplated. What if we create something that outlives us? Aren't we all tired of just surviving? The conversation shifted, moving like a wave. They debated, rejected, and then embraced ideas that had huddled in the corners for far too long. The seeds of unity were being planted right there among the bodies, bonded by vulnerability and the desire for healing. Yet, Joe remained aware of the steep climb lying just beyond the moment. As the evening drew on, Joe could feel a shift in electrifying tension of potential hanging in the air. They were beginning to believe, to rally around the glimmer of hope he was offering, but in that moment of newfound camaraderie, a cold snap of wind rattled through the window, bringing the distant sounds of a rallying storm. Joe glanced outside, an unsettling feeling creeping up his spine. What fresh adversity lay ahead for them? Storms were inevitable, but would they be strong enough to weather it all together? With his heart pounding, Joe realized they were at a pivotal threshold. Would the community embrace him and the vision he held, or let prejudices push them apart once again? With everything at stake, the time for action was closing in fast. The moon battled behind thick clouds, swirling shadows danced outside the hall's windows. Joe could feel the energy of the room crackle as the closing remarks of the meeting settled in. While the doubt had simmered, something brighter now stirred among the crowd, a cautious sense of purpose. But as quickly as warmth swelled, it was shivered away by the various weighty glances exchanged amongst the townsfolk. Mary stepped back after her fierce defense of him, and Joe could see how the flickering flames illuminated her determined eyes. No longer just a proud voice but now a beacon, he thought. How do I make this real? He murmured under his breath. The prospect felt both thrilling and paralyzing. Did we all hear that wind? Came a voice from the corner. Dave, always the skeptic, shook his head. Storm's rolling in. We should be hunkered down at home, not talking about dreams. What use are words if the storm washes everything away? Joe's heart plunged again. Here it was, that familiar wave of defeat threatening to sweep back in. He had felt that current, the feeling that all effort could be washed away in a single moment of a storm. But one look around reminded him of the glimmers of support he had seen moments before. The storms won't define us, Joe said, raising his voice over the growing murmur. We decide what we stand for, even when the winds blow hard. The crowd fell silent, some nodding, others deep in thought. Joe pressed forward. If we band together, we can create tools and systems that won't just sustain this town through bad weather, we can thrive from it. Let us build a community that is stronger than any storm. Easy to say, hard to do, Dave fired back, crossing his arms defiantly. Voices began to rise again, skepticism rekindling. I know it sounds impossible, Joe admitted, a tremor creeping into his voice. I don't have all the answers. But I've worked hard to figure out a way to grow crops differently, to utilize every ounce of sunlight and rain. If you give me the chance, I'll show you how to work the land together. I'm asking you to trust me. You want our trust? Another voice rose, tinged with resentment. You're just a farmer. Exactly. Joe replied, spurred by the challenge. What makes me a farmer also makes me one of you. I've toiled in these fields just like you. I am at the mercy of the same storms. This isn't about me, it's about all of us, coming together to forge our own future. The fire crackled violently, shadows enveloped them like the shifting clouds outside. A palpable tension hung in the air, mixed with unease and longing. Would they choose to step forward? It was Mary again who broke the silence. Maybe Joe's the one who can help us rise above it all. It can't hurt to try. This town has been crippled by doubt for too long. Heads began to turn, whispers ignited. Joe caught glimpses of resolve anchoring their faces, hearts slowly thawing beneath the weight of uncertainty. Maybe we need to stop being so afraid, someone ventured softly. What if we join? Just then, a crash echoed outside, sending a jolt through the room. Windows rattled as lightning illuminated the sky for just a moment, and gasps filled the air. Tell me this is just the wind, whispered one woman in the back, her voice shaky. Joe's pulse raced as he turned toward the door. Whatever comes through that door, we face it together. But let this be the night we choose change. A cheer erupted, building like the rising storm outside. Fear and hope collided with electrifying force. How fast could change cultivate roots in this fragile gathering of souls? As the cheers crescendoed, Joe realized they were on the verge of something monumental, a choice that could either save them or shred them further apart, and amidst the budding unity, the watchful clouds loomed, threatening to unleash chaos. Would their newfound trust hold against the tempest that approached? The cheers still echoed in Joe's ears as adrenaline surged through him. He scanned the eager faces, feeling their hope tethered tightly to his words. It was a window of possibility opening before him, like the clearing sky after a storm. But he couldn't shake the feeling of dread clawing at the back of his mind. Stay close together. He called out, trying to rally the gathering that had a sudden shift in mood. The command felt heavy yet necessary. As they huddled together, hands clasped and shoulders pressed, the thunder rumbled like a warning that rattled their convictions. The wind howled outside, battering the walls, but inside, an unfamiliar warmth began to bloom. Joe turned his attention to the makeshift podium, the old wooden crate he had stood on, its surface slightly wobbling under the weight of their collective anticipation. Every idea needs nurturing, even from a storm, he declared, feeling the tremor in his own being steady. As he spoke, he caught Mary's gaze. It sparkled with renewed determination. What if we turn this storm into an opportunity? She proposed, her words volleying into the space between them. Let us gather what resources we can, turn our gardens into rain catchers. Let us learn from nature for once and face whatever comes with open hearts. Her notion ignited murmurs of agreement among the crowd. Joe felt the surge of hope twist within him, like a spring ready to burst. We could prepare in the next few days. Let us share what we know and pull together all our strengths. He glanced at Dave, hoping he would see the new light. All right, I get it, Dave said reluctantly, the skeptical lines of his face softening. But it sounds crazy to start now, we may not even have the time. Crazy is sometimes the only way, Joe replied firmly. Better to act than stand by and wait for a disaster. What we can build together is greater than any fierce wind or torrential rain. A whisper of uncertainty lingered, contrasting against a background of encouragement swelling in the room. Teens next to the adults began to chant, rallying each other with shouts of excitement. Save our town. Save our farms. Joe could see the energy change. Even the reluctant were drawn towards a collective mission, and he felt the heart of their community awaken in unison. They were not merely individuals anymore, they were a chorus, ready to rise against whatever storm loomed. Then it happened. A violent crack echoed, sending shards of lightning slicing through the night, illuminating the fearful faces for a fleeting moment. A collective gasp twitched through the group, followed by an unsettling silence. Is this it? Someone murmured, their voice thick with apprehension. Not if we stand together. We've faced harder days, Joe reminded them, heart pounding. What good is a storm if it only brings us closer? With that, a profound shift broke free. One by one, townsfolk began to step forward with their ideas how they could gather water, build structures more resilient to the wind, and plant deeper roots. Yet, amidst the flurry of exchanges, Joe felt something gnawing at him. A secret he had kept buried, one that festered like a weed refusing to die. What if his own methods could be the very key to their survival? He stood there, eyes scanning the faces of his friends and neighbors who suddenly became family. Could he bear his truth? The very foundations of who he was? Joe swallowed hard, pondering the weight of what he was about to reveal. What if they could save themselves and let him offer the unseen strength he carried? The wind outside howled stronger, and the walls creaked ominously. But was he brave enough to share it? The choice loomed as darkness wrapped around the town like a tightening grip. Would his secret be the bridge to their future? Or would it be the very thing that disintegrated their newfound trust? In the charged silence, tension mounted, the storm outside surging like the inner turmoil within him. What would he say to keep the light alive? The storm was here, and so was his moment. What awaited him on the other side was the question that danced in his heart as the tempest loomed larger than ever. The air felt thick, charged with anticipation, as Joe weighed the enormity of his decision. He took a deep breath, glancing at Mary, whose steady gaze urged him on. She believed in him, and maybe, just maybe, he could believe in himself too. Listen, everyone, he began, voice steady but soft, the crackle of thunder punctuating his words. There's something I need to share. It's difficult for me, but with what is coming, I think we need to know each other fully. The crowd murmured softly as Joe felt their eyes bore down on him, the trust they deformed amplifying the weight of his secret. He took another breath, and with it, a flicker of courage ignited within him. I wasn't he always just Joe, the farmer, he confessed, his heart racing. Years ago, before I came here, I had different skills, different training. His fingers fidgeted with the edge of the crate, grounding him as he spoke. I know things, techniques for weatherproofing, storm readiness. I studied this stuff, and I thought I left it behind. But it's been bubbling inside me again, and maybe it's time to put it to use. Silence enveloped them, thick as the storm overhead. Faces shifted from confusion to curiosity, then to hope. What do you mean? Someone shouted, stepping forward, eyes bright. You know how to prepare. I do, he replied, feeling the fire in his belly well up. We can build barriers for the water, create shelters, and have backup systems for food. It might not just save us physically, but mentally too. We need to connect, be more than we were. Mary stepped closer, her encouragement like a warm light against the storm outside. We can do this together, right? She urged, glancing at the crowd. He is offering us a lifeline. With what we all know, we can strengthen our community like never before. Nods began to ripple through the throng, momentum picking up like a breeze at their backs. Joe smiled, the tension easing as a collective energy surged forward. Let us form groups to review what skills we have and what we can learn. If I've learned one thing, it's that storms, while frightening, can sometimes clear the way for new beginnings. A few of the teens shouted agreements, energized, they were already planning how to gather supplies and share their knowledge. Even Dave, who had once been skeptical, nodded with enthusiasm, his eyes shimmering with hope. As the noise grew, Joe realized this was the connection he yearned for, they were weaving their differences into something powerful. Laughter mingled with logistical discussions, forming a bridge of trust that spanned their fears, yet, amidst the newfound fervor, Joe's heart raced at what lay ahead, his past intertwined with an uncertain future. Would they accept his help fully, or would they recoil from his history? The storm outside continued to rage, beating fiercely against the walls, but inside, they were forging something resilient. Right now, let us focus on the next few days. We'll gather materials and resources, Joe urged, the adrenaline thrumming through him. We'll need to work through the night. A hand shot up from a burly man at the back. I've got rope and nails. He shouted, excitement in his voice. And I can bring my tractor. Shouted another. Joe felt the swell of community, the thrill of collective progress coursing through him. Yet in the depths of his mind, the shadow of uncertainty lingered. What secrets lay in his own techniques that he hadn't yet revealed? Would he be able to protect not just the town but also his own heart? As those questions hovered in the air, Joe realized more than just the storm was closing in, it was the storm within him that needed to be faced. Were they ready for whatever darkness loomed? Would they still stand together when the shadows of truth began to unfurl? That was the true test that lay just ahead. The chatter buzzed with renewed enthusiasm, igniting a spark that blanketed the crowded barn with palpable energy. Joe felt the joy boiling within him. It was a far cry from the isolation he'd felt only days before. They were coming together, hearts aligned against the storm. It was exhilarating. All right, let us split up. Joe prompted, clapping his hands to draw attention. The crowd grew silent, faces eager, eyes shining with purpose. I want you all to think about your skills. We need builders, gatherers, and thinkers. Mary, can you take the younger ones and help brainstorm our supplies? You got it. Mary beamed, her enthusiasm infectious. She turned to the teens, her voice vibrant. Okay, team. Let us start a list. We need food, sturdy materials, anything we can find that'll hold up to the storm. Joe watched as they broke into groups, voices overlapping with excitement. He noticed the community spirit rising. This was the heart he had ached to find. Yet, deep inside, an anxiety twisted like a coiled snake. He felt the shadows whispering doubts. Were they truly ready for the truth of his past? He turned to find Dave's gaze fixed on him, a knowing look in his eye. You okay? Dave asked, genuine concern etched on his face. I will be, Joe responded, forcing a smile, though it trembled slightly. The weight of his secret threatened to crush him, but he couldn't let it show. Not now. Not when they needed him most. With a nod, Joe joined a small group gathering supplies. As they moved through the barn, gathering ropes, planks, and tools, laughter filled the space, echoing off the weathered walls like a promise of brighter days. For every item collected, they exchanged stories, each one reinforcing the bond between them. Here, take this. Someone shouted, holding out an old tarp. We can use this for water shelter. Joe felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude. He had watched these people struggle, fight their own battles, and here they were, extending their hands for one another. But shadows crept in again. He could almost hear the relentless whispers. What if they found out? What if they feared him, blamed him? A breath caught in his throat, and he paused. Hey, Dave said softly, stepping closer. You know we've all got our pasts. Whatever you're carrying, it's okay. We're in this together, right? His friend's words struck deep. The bonds formed through shared struggles were powerful, more potent than any storm. But how could he share the honest truth about who he was? Thanks, man, Joe replied, his voice barely above a whisper, but it was filled with a growing resolve. I guess I just need to take my own advice. It's time to prepare for all the storms, not just the weather. As they piled what they could find, a distant roll of thunder urged them on, a reminder of the storm closing in. Let us take a quick break. Joe called, needing a moment to gather his thoughts. The group gathered around, and he searched their faces, determination shining through like the first light of dawn after a long night. I want to tell you something important. It might change our dynamic, but I believe it's time, he started, voice steadying against the winds outside. Just as he began to speak, the lights flickered. The barn grew dim, casting worrisome shadows that danced across the walls. A collective intake of breath rippled through the group as darkness enveloped them for a heartbeat. What was that? Someone whispered, a hint of fear creeping in. Joe's heart raced. Time was running short. He needed to share his truth, to unite them before the storm crashed down. Would they see him for who he really was? Or would this moment shatter all they built together? The storm was here inside and out, and he knew his next words would determine the strength of their bond as it stood at the brink of something monumental. Now he had to decide, would he step into the light and reveal what he hid, or would he retreat back to the shadows? The darkness was thick in the barn, palpable and heavy, like a blanket smothering hope. Joe felt the pulse of his heart quicken as he tried to look at each familiar face illuminated by the flickering lights. He cleared his throat, but all he could hear was the distant growl of thunder, a warning of the tempest approaching both outside and within him. "Listen," he began, his voice trembling slightly. I need to be honest with you all. What I'm about to say might change things." His words hung in the air, the silence deepening as everyone leaned in, eager yet wary. "Before I came here, I was in a dark place. I made choices. Terrible ones." The shame clouded his heart, each confession feeling like a weight on his chest. Mary stepped forward, her eyes softening. "We all have shadows, Joe. Just tell us." A rush of gratitude washed over him. But then the fear crashed in fiercely, tightening around him like a vice. What if his shadows were too dark, too heavy? I was involved in something I shouldn't have been. It was a bad crowd, and I lost a lot because of it. My family, they don't know what happened. I left them behind to escape. The admission felt like a raw wound, the air around them thickening with his truth. The group held their breath. Joe dared to look up, their faces drawn but attentive. Their expressions gave him strength. But then the flickering lights dimmed further, causing another ripple of anxiety to skitter through the barn. "Are you okay with that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the crackling sounds around them. Dave stepped forward, his brow furrowing. "How can we be okay with anything if you don't trust us with your full truth? You've held back, Joe. We understand pain. We understand mistakes. None of us are perfect here." The sincerity in Dave's words struck Joe like a lightning bolt. He breathed in deeply, grounding himself. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Scared you might see me as that person I was. But I'm not that guy anymore. I want to be better. I want to belong here." A low rumble of thunder punctuated his confession, but this time it felt empowering, almost transformative. It was as if nature itself was urging him on. "We're not here to judge you, Joe." Another voice chimed in, this time it was Sam, his tone steady. "We're all making our way through life looking for second chances. Don't you see? You found us. You're not alone anymore." A wave of relief washed over Joe, quickly followed by an exhilarating warmth that almost brought tears to his eyes. The truth was scary, but maybe, just maybe, it could also be liberating. As the barn lights flickered back to life, there was a renewed energy among them, a collective acceptance that thrummed like a heartbeat. "Let us focus on what we're going to do next. We can't let fear stop us," Joe declared, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We're a team. We prepare for this storm together, just like we have to prepare ourselves for whatever comes after." With that, he raised his hand as if to rally them, a gesture that lifted spirits. One by one, they began to echo his resolve, nodding, murmuring agreement. The darkness that had threatened to seep in began to recede, replaced by a light that glimmered in their shared determination. But just as hope began to blossom, another loud crack of thunder boomed outside, shaking the very foundations of the barn. What was that? A frightened voice broke through the renewed energy. Joe's stomach dropped as they all turned toward the looming door, a more intense fear gripping their hearts. Could it be the storm, or was it a warning of something worse? Suddenly, they needed to decide, were they ready to face whatever came at them together, or would old fears threaten to tear them apart again? The air inside the barn grew tense, crackling with a mix of anxiety and determination. The thunder outside roared like a beast, and the shadows danced as the flickering lights threatened to fail once more. Joe glanced around, meeting the eyes of his friends. He could see the fear etched on their faces, but beneath it was something else, an unshakable bond, a promise of loyalty that spanned the roughest waters they had faced. "Are we really going to just stand here?" he shouted over the encroaching roar. "We have a storm to prepare for." Mary nodded vigorously, her brow furrowed with resolve. "You're right, Joe. Together, whatever it is out there, we'll face it. All of us." Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor below the surface, hinting at the worry that weighed on her. The lights flickered ominously, casting long, restless shadows that tickled the edges of uncertainty. Joe took a deep breath, grounding himself for a moment. This was more than just a storm, this was about courage and unity. "Okay, first things first," he said, rallying his thoughts. "We need to secure the barn. If that storm hits, I don't even want to think what could happen." "Right." Dave chimed in. "Let us get those doors reinforced. And if we have any tools or ropes, we can tie down the loose items." They sprang into action. Joe felt the adrenaline coursing through him. He grabbed the hammer, moving fast as he began nailing down wooden panels against the barn doors. The familiar ache in his muscles reminded him of the work he had left behind when he ran away from his past. But this time, he wasn't alone. As they worked, voices blended into a rhythm, every shout and laugh became a step closer to overcoming their fear. "That's it. Finish those boards. We're stronger together." Sam encouraged, a twinkle of hope in his eyes, but just as they started to feel the warmth of success, another violent crash rumbled through the barn, making the walls tremble. "What if this doesn't hold?" A voice squeaked from the back of the group. Joe paused, a chill creeping up his spine. He could feel the mounting tension. "What if it does?" He shot back, channeling all his inner strength into those words. The doubt creeping in felt all too familiar, a reminder of the dark place he had come from, but he refused to let it seep into this moment. "Listen everyone," he called out, holding his hammer tightly like a sword. "We've all come from our own battles. We can't let fear divide us. We gotta believe that we can get through this, no matter how hard it gets." His words hung in the air, a challenging spark against the storm. Slowly, heads nodded in agreement. The group was solidifying. Old fears began to fade beneath the growing light of resolve, but just as they finished securing the last of the panels, a heavy shadow fell over the barn's entrance. The door creaked open, a gust of cold wind rushing in, snuffing out a few nearby candles. Joe's heart raced as he squinted into the dimness. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady despite the apprehension clawing at him. The figure stepped forward, shrouded in darkness yet unmistakably familiar. "I need your help," a shaky voice whispered, sending shivers down their spines. It was his brother, the one he thought he'd left behind forever. "What are you doing here?" Joe gasped, everything inside him freezing as unresolved feelings surfaced like a specter he couldn't ignore. As he looked at his brother, questioning everything, uncertainty crackled anew in the air. What would this reunion mean? Would it tear down the walls they had worked so hard to build, or could it finally forge an unbreakable bond? Before he could ask, the backdrop of thunder roared again, drowning out the words on the tip of his tongue. Each heartbeat pulsed with the weight of what lay ahead. What would their reunion bring, with the storm of the past still raging in the shadows? Joe's breath caught in his throat. There stood his brother, looking scruffy and worn, just like the days they had fought side by side in their childhood. The storm outside raged harder, shaking the barn, reminding them both of the tempest that had followed their family since their father's passing. "Why are you here?" Joe managed to say, forcing his voice to be steady, even as chaos surged within him. The years apart flooded back like a wave. Anger, regret, longing. "Joe, I didn't know where else to go," his brother, Alex, stammered. The desperation in his eyes tugged at Joe's heart. "I've messed up. I need your help. Please." Joe stood there, hammer in hand, torn between the pull of family and the hurt of betrayal. Memories flashed the last time they spoke, the sharp words exchanged when Joe left home. "You should have thought of that before you disappeared forever," Joe shot back, unable to hide his hurt. The words felt heavy as they echoed in the barn, mingling with the storm's howl. "Please. I'm not that person anymore," Alex pleaded, stepping further into the dim light. "I've changed. I've been trying, and it hasn't been easy." Mary shifted, watching the exchange closely. Her heartache mirrored Joe's. "Is it true?" she asked cautiously, stepping closer. "Have you really changed?" The bond forged in the heat of the barn and the sound of imminent disaster didn't fade as Alex turned to the others, meeting their gazes. "I know I've let everyone down. But I thought I could at least find solace here, with all of you before the storm hits." Joe felt a flicker of something hope. Anger? Maybe both. "You think we can just forget? You left us when we needed you most. You were the one who ran." The shadows seemed denser around Alex, thick with the weight of the past. "I was scared. I am still scared. But I can't run anymore," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I'm here to make it right, Joe. Just give me a chance." Thunder shook the barn as if echoing the internal turmoil within Joe. He wanted to believe, but could he risk it? Could he open the door of trust again? The darkness of the past loomed, but so did the flickering lights of potential healing. Maybe we can help you. If you really want to change," Mary spoke, her tone a blend of skepticism and hope. "But you need to prove it." Alex nodded eagerly, relief washing over his features. "I will. Just tell me what you need." "I need to know you're committed," Joe spoke, stepping away from the awkward silence. "We all do. This storm will show us your true colors." Alex breathed deeply, determination settling on his face. "Then let us face this storm together. I can help secure the barn, just like we used to." Just then, a violent crash boomed outside, shaking the barn more violently than before. The walls seemed to creak under pressure. Joe's heart raced again as he felt the urgency spread like wildfire through the group. "Let us move," he commanded, leading the way. Together they rushed to gather ropes and nails, adrenaline fueling their efforts. As they worked side by side, Joe noticed the flickers of renewed camaraderie starting to surface amongst them. Maybe, just maybe, they could overcome this storm both outside and within, but as they hammered down one final panel, a blistering wind gusted through, sending old memories swirling into the air like autumn leaves. "What if this storm tears us apart?" someone whispered. Joe locked eyes with Alex, his brother's past wrapped tightly around his heart. Would they withstand the tempest raging beyond their barn doors, or would the thunderous chaos expose cracks in their fragile bond? With the storm battering around them, one question hung in the air: what would it take to unite them through the storm of their lives? The storm's roar intensified as the barn quaked around them, an echo of the turmoil back in Joe's heart. He hammered alongside Alex, each stroke a chance to rebuild not just their barn, but their bond. On one side, he felt the heat of anger still rising at the memories of betrayal. On the other, an undercurrent of longing pulsed the desperate desire for family. "Remember when we used to fix things together?" Alex said breathlessly, sweat glistening on his brow. Joe nodded, fighting the surge of mixed emotions. The memories of simpler days hung heavily in the air, a fragile reminder of their childhood amidst the chaos. "Yeah, we thought we could fix anything," Joe replied. "But it's different now." The words tasted bitter. He knew the stakes. While winds howled outside, they needed to stand their ground. "Things can change," Alex insisted, but his voice cracked slightly under the pressure. "I wish I could go back and do things differently." "Wishing one change anything?" Joe shot back. Anger boiled just beneath the surface. "You chose to run when we needed you most. You think I wanted to leave? I didn't have a choice." Alex argued, desperation gripping his words. Each heated exchange unfolded like a layer of the past peeling back, revealing the raw feelings beneath. They secured the last panel, and the barn shuddered under the force of wind, reminding them they were running out of time. "Let us focus on survival for now," Joe called out, glancing around at the gathered townsfolk. "We need all hands. Everyone. We're a team, remember?" Mary stepped up, her fierce determination lighting up the dark like a beacon. "Together, we can make it through." Her voice rang clear, injecting new energy into the crowd. Determination shifted the atmosphere, they couldn't afford to falter. As they secured the barn, voices rose, plans formed, and the air buzzed with camaraderie against the encroaching storm. Laughter peeked through the cracks of fear, momentarily bridging the gap Joe once felt acutely. "Here. Over here. I've got the last of the tools," someone shouted, scrambling to grab what was left. Joe felt tension ease a bit. They could do this. They could weather the storm together. And then, from the shadows, he heard Alex's voice call out. "Joe. I can climb up to the roof and secure it from above. I remember how. Just like old times." Could he trust him? Joe hesitated before nodding slowly. "Okay. Just be careful, and hold on tight." With one last glance exchanged, Alex darted toward the door, determination coloring every step. "Don't lose sight of each other," Joe shouted after him. The urgency of the moment clashed with the pang of long-buried love for his brother. And suddenly, something shifted within him that he stepped back, watching not just his brother, but the crowd rallying behind him. The storm gathered intensity outside, but inside, the warmth of unity ignited a quiet hope, a shifting current that could reshape their fate. As the huddled group continued work, Joe felt the tension blend with excitement. With each nail hammered and every rope tied, the air filled with a collective pulse, a heartbeat of determination. It echoed in his chest, they wouldn't let the storm define them. "Hold on tight," Alex called down, securing the last fastener on the roof. He steadied himself, looking down at the barn floor alive with activity. "I'm almost done up here." Suddenly, a front row of lighting illuminated the sky, highlighting the faces beneath. Fear turned to resolve as they shared anxious but determined glances. Mary moved close to Joe, her demeanor calm but firm. "We can get through this together, you know." Joe felt her strength wash over him like a comforting wave. He steadied his breath, feeling the weight of her belief anchor him. "Yet together," he murmured, knowing it held more power than he had ever considered. The wind howled louder, shaking the barn's foundations. "We need to get everyone in a safe spot," Joe shouted. "Let us form a circle in the center with everyone huddled together." They quickly gathered, breathing hard but eager, forming that circle. Their walls against the storm. Standing together, arms clasped, they shared glances that etched confidence and hope into their hearts. "Don't let go," Joe instructed, not just reminding them, but also himself. He had each of their stories, fears, and insecurities intertwining in that moment. They were all flawed, all brave, all striving for a better tomorrow. Even Alex.as the storm hit, it crashed against their sanctuary like a great beast roaring its fury. The barn shook, and debris flew against the walls outside, but inside, something remarkable unfolded. Hands tightened, eyes bolstered by the strength of communal experience and shared resilience. They furrowed their brows against fear, whispering encouragement to each other, forging a newfound family of support. Together. Mary rallied, her voice like a lighthouse, cutting through turmoil. Together. With that rallying cry, flames of hope surged, illuminating the dark spaces of doubt. In the tempest's eye, they found solace in one another, a community knitted tighter than before, hearts pumping as one, battling the storm head-on. Against all odds, Joe realized that just as storms can ravage, they can also renew. Amidst the howling winds, he felt a newfound understanding bloom, the power of unity, the strength of family, the beauty in vulnerability. Joe wasn't just fighting to protect his legacy anymore, he was creating a new one to embrace love, acceptance, and hope in their most vulnerable moments. As the storm swirled on, he held tight, not only to the group but also to the truth of who he was, past and present colliding, forming a tapestry of resilience. Facing the tempest, he silently vowed to embrace every moment, every challenge, for that flicker of hope was worth fighting for. And so was this community. After what felt like an eternity of chaos, as the winds began to fade, the first rays of dawn peeked through the thick clouds, illuminating their gathering with newfound brightness. They were battered, scared, but they were a family now. The bonds forged in the hardest of storm couldn't be broken. In that dawning light, Joe felt lighter than he had in years. Together, they had faced the darkness, and together, they would rise anew. Now, don't you dare miss this journey. It's time to subscribe immediately to the channel so that you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to show your support. You need to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. What did you feel? And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. True fans understand how vital your actions are to keep the story alive.